Don in London, hello. It's March 29th, a bit cloudy out, and my videos are about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance, alcohol; my behaviour, equally addictive, about being in the right place, with the right people, at the right time, with the right things. And these days, I'm not trying to be anything but me, and learn who I may be by the end of the day, a little bit more about life. Yeah, just keeping on learning, gently, as life offers, or quickly, if need be. If I'm in front of a bus, jump out of the way. Or if I see the bus coming, don't go in the road. A bit like that with recovery, really. Sometimes we need to be swift and fleet of foot, and sometimes we can take our time and go through things gradually. So, what helped me get sober? The answer simply is, these days, besides friends, family, community, professionals, medical people, a fellowship, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Never speak for it, never can, never will. It's full of unique, authentic people who will speak for themselves where they will, and that's absolutely right. People choose and have freedom of action. Again, that's what fellowship's all about. But to make it clear what the fellowship is about, AA, even though I don't speak for it, I'm going to talk a lot about it, is this little card with the AA preamble on it. You can't see it too well because my light's a bit bright, otherwise you wouldn't see me. So the AA preamble, followed by some readings, and finishing off the Serenity Prayer. Very much like a meeting of AA you might encounter if you're new. What you see is what you get. We call it attraction rather than promotion. So I'm not promoting AA that AA can fix you, but it's a place where we learn how to be sober one day at a time, a one-day program where everybody knows your name. So here we go, the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So, experience, strength and hope. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Simple desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. It's free at the point of entry, and remains free if you've got no money, and if you have some money to spare, it will help pay the rent and pay for some literature. That's about it, really. And we don't hold money either. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. But the good news is you can be allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, and you can engage in any controversy, and you can endorse or oppose causes, because you're human, you have your affiliations and you retain them. But AA doesn't want to get into that. We're just there for one thing, sobriety. So when it says our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, that's what it means. Simply that, just for sobriety. And the irony is we find friends and we make friendships over the years. I'm very lucky just to be sober today with people who can help me if things aren't going well. So I don't have to go back and try and fix myself with a drink, nor do I have to try and fix myself in recovery, because it's not about fixing anymore. It's about freedom of choice given our life experience. And to help us along, Daily Reflections, this book, talks about the 12 steps and 12 traditions of AA, one a month. So it really concentrates on the steps and the action we can take on a daily basis. And step 3 is March, and we're coming to the end of this. It says here, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Or, depending on whether we're coming in as agnostic, atheist or believer, there's no reason why you should change your mind about anything which suits you. Except one thing maybe, that a power greater than us can restore us to sanity, which is step 2 really. But let go and let good things happen, or let go and let God. Just let go of trying to be right, trying to know it all, and let go of self-will, which has let us down when it comes to trying to be sober. And if we acknowledge that we need help, and that was the first thing I did, I suppose that was my first awakening into the positive side of spiritual life. rather than living a very negative spiritual life for many years, then it started to make sense. I woke up one morning absolutely driven mad, and on my way out, according to the medical people, I said to myself, I cannot do this on my own, and I don't know how bad it can get after this. And the medic said, you haven't got long to go, mate. So, not out of fear, but out of an acceptance, an admission and acceptance that I needed help. Even I needed help. The great me, who was eventually homeless, destitute, and all the rest of it. The great I am had some help, because I asked for it and realised I was no better, no worse than anybody else on the planet when it comes to addiction. I needed help, and in all departments of my life, and all my thinking had to change, for me anyway. So, March 29th, nearly been out 28th then. Yes, trusted servants. They are trusted servants. Theirs is sometimes the thankless privilege of doing the group's chores. And these are about service positions like greeting, putting up the banners with the 12 steps and 12 traditions, secretary, treasurer, book person or literature secretary, the person who takes the money, makes the tea, sweeps the floor, puts the chairs out, anything like that. Trusted servants. It is here in Zorba the Greek, Nikos describes an encounter between his principal character and an old man busily at work planting a tree. What is it you are doing? Zorba asks. The old man replies, you can see very well what I'm doing, my son. I'm planting a tree. But why plant a tree? Zorba asks, if you won't be able to see it bear fruit. And the old man answers, I, my son, live as though I was never going to die. The response brings a faint smile to Zorba's lips, and as he walks away, he exclaims with a note of irony, how strange, I live as though I was going to die tomorrow. As a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have found that the third legacy is a fertile soil in which to plant the tree of my sobriety. The fruits I harvest are wonderful: peace, security, understanding, and 24 hours of eternal fulfillment. And with the soundness of mind, to listen to the voice of my conscience when, in silence, it gently speaks to me, saying, you must let go in service. There are others who must plant and harvest. You must let go in service. There are others who must plant and harvest. So most trusted servants have a year or 2 years, depending on the service commitment, and we rotate it. So trusted servants never get a power base, if you like, as if they would want one. Well, some people do, because it's going back to old behaviour. I want the meeting my way. I want to make the tea my way. I want to put the chairs out in a certain way. I want it. I want. And as I said at the beginning, once forgotten. Sorry, needs met, once forgotten. So if we're covering our needs, there are a need for trusted servants, that is, people who keep the organisation at a local level going. Then a bit further up in terms of the regional and then the world as well. So they are trusted servants carrying out what is required as the groups of AA suggest. And it's all voted for. So, yes, anarchic democracy. At the same time, it takes about 1 million years, it feels like, to change anything. And the answer is probably don't need to change anything at all, because it's working okay. We just want to stamp our identity on it. So if you think I'm stamping on your identity, tell me to bog off, or whatever word you would use, because I don't want to do that. All I want to do is share how it's working for me. And that's what it's about. What you see is what you get. And the best place is in meetings, because there's lots of people with lots of experience, strength and hope. Anyway, as Bill sees it, I've opened it on page 30. Getting off a dry bender. And dry bender means not drinking, but behaving like we were still drinking. Dry drunk. Sometimes we become depressed. I ought to know. I have been a champion dry bender case myself. While the surface causes were a part of the picture, trigger events that precipitated depression, the underlying causes, I am satisfied, ran much deeper. So in other words, Bill Wilson describing his own difficulties around depression, and as anybody knows these days, there are various forms of descriptions to the types of depression which follow the events. So a traumatic event like giving up drink on a daily basis will trigger a chemical change in the body, which may or may not trigger depression. And if you're unfortunate because you used alcohol to medicate away depression, or at least to keep alive whilst having it, it may be clinical depression that is there. But we don't know that till we get some medical advice. And I would suggest anybody who has any sort of depressive episodes should maybe consult a medical person who has the background to talk about depression. There are no medical professionals in AA. We remain forever non-professional, which means if someone has an idea of what your depression might be, if they're on the right track, they may suggest see a doctor. They can share their experience of it, but they need maybe suggested a doctor could be a good answer. Anyway, Bill goes on to say, intellectually I could accept my situation, emotionally I could not. So we can be very good thinking people and try and think our way out of things, which is suggested in cognitive behavioural therapy, that we can think our way out. But emotionally, Bill said he couldn't. So something inside us which governs our mood is a chemical reaction, as we've come to understand by modern science. So if we have an imbalance in our chemical reactions, some of us, like me, have clinical depression, and when it happens, it has no particular cause other than the chemistry set is out of balance. So if that is happening frequently, persistently, and ongoing in a chronic way, we do need help, or at least I did. To these problems there are certainly no pat answers. In other words, we only find out what we can do or can't do as we go along. But part of the answer surely lies in the constant effort to practice all of AA's 12 steps. And I know practicing the 12 steps, or living the 12 steps, has helped me identify what is going on for me on a daily basis. And when things are getting sticky and difficult, I keep a mood diary. How am I feeling? Why? And what may I do? So if I'm feeling low, I record it. I'm feeling low. Why? Am I reacting to a particular situation I find myself in? And what can I do? So if I'm reacting to something which is sad, that's pretty normal depression. If there is no significant reason for the depression, and it's ongoing and persistent, and it's dragging me down into couldn't care less and worse, desolation, that black place where it's even hard to get out of bed, or just we feel chronic fatigue emotionally, and then physically, because it will affect our emotional and physical state, we better let people know what's going on. So in fellowship we say, I'm depressed, and it's ongoing. And I've seen people do this, so others can say, not to jump in and say, cheer up you old bugger, get yourself sorted. They will give them a cup of tea and a biscuit and wait, possibly. Or just say, let me know if I can do anything. And of course, if you are in depression, you don't want to talk about it, because if it is a persistent chronic condition, there is no cause except the chemistry set is upset in some way, how our emotions are working. And because I didn't want to believe that I would have depression in recovery, nor that I would get physically ill, I suppose my doctors at the time conspired with me when I was suffering from malnutrition for almost a year, because I had type 1 diabetes and didn't know it. But I lost a lot of weight and felt very thirsty. And I felt that this was going to pass. But, you know, if you don't see a change in a period of time which you realise is significant to you or to me, better get professional medical advice who really listen and not just put it down to, well, it's hard work in recovery, isn't it? follow the best advice you can get your hands on, and that's not always, indeed it's not always in fellowship, because fellowship is for sobriety. It won't cure physical ailments, it just means that we spot them earlier if we're listening to what our bodies are telling us. So these days I do listen more fully, and I do get professional medical advice for type 1 diabetes, in addition to my chronic conditions and recovery. I'm alive long enough to get them, that's the thing, and I'm smiling today because I seem to be okay. That's as good as it can get right now. It'd probably be improved if I go to a meeting of AA. What I see is what I get from everybody, and everybody supporting everybody else as best they can. So some days it's good, some days it's rotten, because nobody seems to be able to connect with us, or more importantly, we can't connect with them. And the 12 steps help us know exactly how we feel today. How am I feeling? Why? What can I do? Answer: if I'm joyful beyond reason, go to a meeting, see why. It might be a chemical imbalance. If I'm feeling suicidal, which does happen from time to time in the desolate times of depression, I ask for help in all directions as best I can. So the Serenity Prayer, which helps me on a daily basis, just keep ticking over and knowing what to do. It's the can do, can't do, and wisdom to know the difference scenario, to good conscience, a power greater than you, or God, as you come to understand, or not understand, nor wish to. All points of view count, but the Serenity Prayer or meditation does work. It's like, what can I do, what can't I do, and where's the wisdom? And most often it's not in me. So, to God, or good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me, always, just for today. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or addiction to both substance and behaviour. Is there a difference? Well, I haven't found there is one actually. We probably find we have a primary addiction in some way or other. And for me, it turned out to be alcohol. So these days, I'm a recovering alcoholic, one day at a time. And one of the things I had to get over was being an alcoholic, because it was killing me, literally. And I don't know how many visits in the last few years of drinking I paid to hospitals to be revived in some way or other, or I was in there because somebody was concerned about my state of being. And that was a tragedy, and I only got there because of addiction. And somebody asked me, do I believe that addiction is a disease or an illness? And the answer is yes. Certainly it's a mental illness which is chronic. And we go from being a convivial drinker to a dependent drinker to an addicted drinker, somebody who cannot stop. And it comes in different forms. It can be any form of binging through to 24/7 drinking, which is where I got to. And we don't have to go all the way to 24/7 drinking if we know we've got a problem. But the problem is, with any addiction, first of all, we are ignorant of our condition, and then second, we are probably in denial. We then have to admit it, and then we need to accept it. So, noise is off today, something drilling away there. So what is it? With being convivial, fixing ourselves and our feelings through to dependency, still fixing our feelings and emotions, through to addiction, where fixing anything is just fixing the need to drink because it's compulsive and necessary. If we don't drink, we have a seizure. If we don't drink, we can't function. So when people talk about functioning alcoholics, it doesn't mean they're functioning in the truest sense of the word. Alcoholics like me functioned, stayed alive 24/7 by drinking, and without it I could not cope in any shape or form. But do you know, is that enough? And the answer is no, because I didn't understand what life was all about. So these days, in recovery, I have a slightly better chance of recovery. I'm just going to pause for a moment. I feel a bit like Quasimodo and the bells in Notre Dame this morning. If it's not drilling, it's the neighbour's dog wobble downstairs and creating havoc in my head because I can hear them. And somebody's now banging nails in the wall. Anyway, coming back to recovery. Yes, I'm in recovery one day at a time, where I get to understand what my emotional, spiritual and physical state is. So if I have an understanding of who I am, my emotions, my spiritual connection to now, and my physicality, what's going on for me, I have a better chance. And part of that is being assertive. How am I feeling? Why? What can I do? And often, if I'm on my own, how am I feeling? Why? And what can I do? Is not a very good measure or balance. I need input. And where do I get input? Well, simply from family, friends, community, and a fellowship which I've come to be a part of, to be included in. And that fellowship is Alcoholics Anonymous. So whatever the substance might have been, in my case alcohol, or the behaviour, which for me was collecting people, places and things, being obsessed, wanting to be loved, never sure if I was, never sure if I was capable of loving in a truly open, honest way, because I was always fearful of not being good enough. But this fellowship, AA, helps me on a daily basis find serenity and sobriety. And what does that mean? Well, serenity is being able to accept what is, whether it's good or bad, happy or sad, joyful. Being loved, being able to love back and accept it as it is, rather than not accept myself first, which means I cannot accept other people as they are today. But now, I do accept people as they are today and how they may be in my life, and not be covetous in the sense of demanding more than I am able to. I don't demand anything. It's unconditional these days. But there will be a tweak from time to time which says, I wish, I hope for more. And that's when I start to say to myself, hang on, what's going on? So fellowship is important to me, and I go to meetings of AA. I don't speak for AA, never can, never will, but I share a lot about how it helps me, because I need to include AA in my story of sobriety. So when I go to meetings of AA, there's a statement of intent shared, which I'm going to share now, and then I'm going to share some literature as well, and how I am today. So the AA preamble reads like this: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership, is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And in my case, with noises off this morning, now somebody's got a sanding machine going. So what is going on? Well, it's a Monday morning and work is happening around me, and that's perfectly good. And for me, this is part of, I suppose, my contribution to sharing experience, strength and hope, as it is. In this book, Daily Reflections, it covers the 12 steps of action a person can take to live well in recovery. And the 12 steps of action are about changing attitude and behaviour. We can change our attitude and behaviour in a moment if we understand what is going on around us. So if we understand our environment, we don't need to fear it so much, or maybe we do. We don't have to put a brave face on, we just have to be ourselves. We don't have to revert to ego, how dare this situation be the way it is. We can just say with confidence, this is the way it is, and how can I respond in it? So that's what I learn on a daily basis. So in Daily Reflections, this book is all about step 3, which is letting go and letting good things happen, for March. And it says, and there's a bit here about trusted servants, about AA, and it says here, they are servants. Theirs is sometimes thankless privilege of doing the group's chores, and that means things like sweeping the floors, making the tea, making sure people are greeted, or being involved and included. And it goes on to say an illustration. In Zorba the Greek, the film, Nikos describes an encounter between his principal character and an old man busily at work planting a tree. "What is it you're doing?" Zorba asks. The old man replies, "You can see very well what I'm doing, my son. I'm planting a tree." "But why plant a tree," Zorba asks, "if you won't be able to see it bear fruit?" And the old man answers, "I, my son, live as though I was never going to die." The response brings a faint smile to Zorba's lips, and as he walks away, he exclaims with a note of irony, "How strange, I live as though I were going to die tomorrow." As a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have found that the third legacy is a fertile soil in which to plant the tree of my sobriety. The fruits I harvest are wonderful: peace, security, understanding, and 24 hours of eternal fulfillment. And with the soundness of mind to listen to the voice of my conscience when, in silence, it gently speaks to me saying, "You must let go in service. There are others who must plant and harvest." So what we do today will impact on people tomorrow. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be there to see it happen, but if we keep on with the unity, service and recovery and fellowship, it's what we give, not what we receive ultimately in these 12 steps of action of change. That's how it works in fellowship. We give it to keep it. All good, even the noise is off. So at the end of my videos, when I say the serenity prayer to God of good conscience, no matter what the noises are, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is, for me, always just for one day. Doesn't really apply to me. I don't sleep that well anyway, so I've been up a while, and my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or addiction to substance and behaviour, because if our primary addiction doesn't kick off, it's often likely that it comes out in a different way. So my substance addiction was alcohol, and I'm in recovery one day at a time, and my behaviour, workaholic, relationshipaholic, all the isms you can possibly imagine, gymaholic, whatever would fix me. And I was looking for that daily fix of how to deal with my feelings, or push them down and suppress them so they didn't bother me. And the biggest feeling I probably pushed down all the time, although it was always there, was fear. Fear of being found out, not being good enough, or feeling that I wasn't paid enough, or I wasn't this, that or the other enough, you name it. It was probably me, not understanding how life can be. But where am I today? Well, less fear, less ego, less putting on a brave face, and more in touch with faith, courage and confidence on a daily basis. And it is a daily chore. Recovery from addiction to substance or behaviour is a daily, ongoing, it's not a battle, it's a living experience. And in our self-will days, where willpower was everything, we were pushing ourselves against limits which we either looked for ourselves or were imposed upon us to be perfect. If we were perfect, there would be no point in being here at all. It's all about the journey for me these days, and the journey can be a bit of a twist and a bit of a turn, and sometimes out of the blue good things happen. So yesterday was a good day for a lot of reasons. It wasn't without its ups and downs, and I suppose challenges as well, to cherish and love and be a part of, and really, really deeply care for people. And I got to 2 meetings, one of which we had a group conscience about timekeeping. I'm talking about fellowship meetings here. That's the fellowship of AA, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm part of the fellowship of AA. I go there as a normal sized person. I have no big shot ideas or low shot ideas. I just go in with an equal heart, I hope. And I share my experience, strength and hope on these videos, not to promote anything or undermine anything, just to talk about my recovery. And the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has helped enormously. In fact, it probably did save my life, and it still does, one day at a time. So at the beginning of every meeting I go to, there is a preamble shared, and I'll share it now. It gives an idea of where I'm coming from. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I went to 2 meetings yesterday. The first one, all about Tradition 3, which is all about having a desire to stop drinking, being the only, I suppose, entrance qualification to be in the fellowship of AA, and it's good. It is the only one. In the past, there were somebody tried to make a list of all the rules and regulations for attendance at AA fellowship meetings, or to be part of the fellowship, and the list got to a mile long, and then everybody realised there is only one reason for coming to AA, and that's simply a desire not to drink a day at a time. So it opens the door to everyone and everybody, and does not offer prejudice in any shape or form against anyone for any reason. And it's interesting because one of my meetings, my favourite meetings on a Saturday, we discussed just how long a person can share their experience, strength and hope as the main event, if you like, the chair. And in this meeting it's only 5 minutes, and then people get the opportunity to share back. And the concern was the sharer backers were going to overrun and not give everybody a good level of time each if they wanted to share. So where do we get to? I suppose there is a common understanding that people need to be mindful of how long they have to share, and the secretary can wave a yellow card and say, would you mind stopping now? But I guess my experience is that trying to enforce that particular rule on any alcoholic does not work, because if they find they're shut down at one meeting, they'll go to another one and share the whole story there, and it can actually undermine somebody who needs to share from the deepest part of them what is happening today. I don't worry about that. It's a rule which is almost unenforceable, because when you know a person needs to talk, you let them get on with it. So there we go. We'll see how it goes. I don't think there'll be any changes though. Not that it will matter. You know, people in AA just do what they need to do to keep well and keep fit and keep healthy, emotionally, spiritually and physically. And part of my videos, oh yes, and last night I went to another meeting. It was a harrowing meeting about all the hardship that comes with being in recovery, that life continues to happen, and you know, it's not all jolly hockey sticks and all the rest of it. It's not that serenity means that it's peaceful, joyous and happy and free all the time. We have to deal with all the other side of life, and as I know all too well, people die and people get ill and people are often not well, and we have our part to play in that too, and it brings us down, and we have to face reality. And I guess that's what these meetings do for me. So 2 good meetings for 2 different reasons, and I know that the overriding part of this is a desire not to drink on a daily basis is the main reason for going, so we can share our joy and our sadness as life affords. So I've gone on a bit now, and March, it's all about step 3 for me. There are 12 steps of action in the action program of AA for people, 12 steps of action to live each day. And in the Daily Reflection book, which is an AA publication, 1 page a day, March is all about step 3, and step 3 reads literally, made a decision to turn our will over to, our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And the slightly shorter form of the long form, as they call it, in this 12 by 12 blue book, says of step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So it's as you understand God, not as I understand God. We all have our own separate ideas about that. Step 3 is like opening a locked door. How shall we let God into our lives? Willingness is the key. Dependence as a means to independence. Dangers of self-sufficiency. Turning our will over to a higher power. Misuse of willpower. Sustained and personal exertion necessary to conform to God's will. Or good conscience, or the truth of now. All those things are so important. And you know, self-will and intellect kept me drinking far too long. It gave me every coping strategy in the book of life and kept me out drinking. But my best feelings these days, the emotional spiritual connection to now, keep me sober and going to meetings of AA, because on a daily basis I get a bit of sustenance to keep on track and be a part of, to be included. So March 29th in this book, Daily Reflection says, trusted servants. They are trusted servants. Theirs is sometimes the thankless privilege of doing the group's chores, like the secretary trying to wave a card at somebody who's overly long in their sharing. In Zorba the Greek, Nikos Kazan, whatever it says, describes an encounter between his principal character and the old man busily at work planting a tree. "What is it you're doing?" Zorba asks. The old man replies, "You can see very well what I'm doing, my son. I'm planting a tree." "But why plant a tree?" Zorba asks. If you won't be able to see it, if you won't, yes, sorry, here we go. "But why plant a tree?" Zorba asks, "if you won't be able to see it bear fruit?" And the old man answers, "I, my son, live as though I was never going to die." The response brings a faint smile to Zorba's lips. As he walks away, he exclaims with a note of irony, how strange I live as though I were going to die tomorrow." As a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have found that the third legacy is a fertile soil in which to plant the tree of my sobriety. The fruits I harvest are wonderful: peace, security, understanding, and 24 hours of eternal fulfillment. And with the soundness of mind to listen to the voice of my conscience when in silence it gently speaks to me, saying, "You must let go in service. There are others who must plant and harvest." I know I stumbled over that, but the point is for me that it makes my life work just one day at a time.